Hello and welcome to the Sensual Being podcast with myself, your host, Jolene Whiting. I have been a pole dance teacher for nearly 20 years. I'm also a yoga instructor, and my favourite pastimes are connecting to my own sensuality, connecting with the world, and connecting with animals as well. In this podcast, you'll find new and inventive ways of how you see yourself, connecting yourself with others, and also how you see and view the world around you. In our episode today, we are very much linking in spirituality with our business and logical mind by really focusing on how our perception, how we show up, how we look at things really does create our own realities. Hello and welcome, you wonderful, wonderful sensual being, and I hope you are having an amazing day so far. This episode is an interesting one because I feel like it links in to how spirituality links in with being productive, running a business, going to work. I feel like this is one of those themes that's going to be knitting together both of those, and the more you can embrace both of them together and not just think with a business mind, a logical mind, then I think the more you will get out of whatever it is that you're doing, any creative projects or just going to work or just showing up as a parent. It's never just. But what I'm saying is that if you link these two things in together, then you'll find that the spirituality will actually drive you in your logical mind. And I feel like this is an important episode because when we don't do that, we are very much conditioned in this world to kind of think more logical. I mean, you have it when you're at school. You've got to pass your exams and stuff like that. You know, you've got it there. What are you going to do when you leave school? You've got it there. It's very logic driven. And it does not it puts too much pressure on yourself to think about your next step. What's your next move? How much money are you trying to make? And this sort of thing doesn't help the creative flow. And I know this because I've been teaching pole dancing for like 20 years, and I create routines and combinations, choreography, all sorts of different things like that. But I find if I'm under pressure from these types of, I call them maybe outer influences like money and amount of students and things like that, I find that can actually like push down the creative flow that I need to be able to push forwards in the creative side. And I just find it very interesting because we are obviously all very distracted by these pressures that we have. And I think that what we're going to talk about today will really help for you to flip back into that creative process, into a much more freeing state, a way of reevaluating what you're doing or why you're doing it, and trying not to get bogged down with the stuff that I know we all have to deal with. And I'm not saying we won't have to deal with that, but I think that there is a lot of value, particularly when we remember that our perception creates our reality. Now, when we think about that, you can apply this to so many situations, so many. So when we look at our perception and how it creates our reality, what it creates around us, for an example, if you are just showing up and you're all doom and gloom. Oh God, look, it's cloudy again right now. Oh, look, I bet that means it's going to rain later. Oh, that means everything's going to get wet that's on the washing line. Oh, this is so bad. Everything bad happens to me. And then do you know what's going to happen? Everything bad is going to happen to you because you're inviting it in. So then we tip into manifesting with this episode as well. So the universe will not give you what you want. It will give you what you are. So if you are showing up in this type of way, in whatever way, shape or form, if you can start to, this is where you kind of work on a bit of your shadow side as well, Do you have anything that you always say about yourself? I'm always late. Oh, it's just me. I'm always late for everything. Anything like that. Do you have anything? Because we all do. And even when I think I've uncovered all of mine, there's still more. There's always more. There's always more layers. But so if you're saying I'm always late, the universe is like, yeah, you are. So you're going to be late for everything because that's what you're telling me you are. So therefore, this is what I'm giving you. This is where our perception creates our reality. So if you start to reframe that in your mind, maybe not even, so an affirmation would be, I'm always on time. I'm always on time. But when you think about, oh, I'm always late. Why am I always so late for everything? Everything always happens to me. When you do it with that sort of intent, that is really embodying whatever it is you're saying. So how about, instead of trying to be on time and saying, I am always on time, I am always on time, which is an affirmation, you can still do that. But maybe you could increase the affirmation instead and say, oh my God, I'm so on time for everything. God, this keeps happening to me. I don't know how it keeps happening to me. I am on time for, oh my God, I am on time for everything. How does this happen? And when you start to do it like that, you are embodying that as you were with that negative. This is where it gets a little bit interesting because I heard this and I thought, okay, so I'm going to try it. So I started trying it and the difference has been profound, mainly in my own mind. And you may think, yeah, but if it's in your own mind, then it's not really happening. That is where the magic is. If you can visualize it, if you can embody it, that means you are it. You don't become it, you are it already. So when we look at the perception creating your reality, I want you to now think about being a hawk and you are flying through the air and they fly so high up and yet they can see everything. And they have the eagle eye, we hear the eagle eye, you can zoom in and see parts. But when you are flying high and you are looking at your entire situation, you might suddenly see it from maybe someone else's angle. And then you might think, oh, that isn't actually how I've been carrying it. And this is also where forgiveness might come in. Maybe there's something that's happened recently, 20 years ago, but you're carrying it. And you're like, well, or maybe it's carrying you, should I say. It's carrying you, and we want to work out how to carry it. So when we look at forgiveness, that can completely change our perception. And when they say forgive and forget, I think yes and no, because I'm not going to, if someone does something really bad to me, I'm not going to forgive and forget and then just let them back in my life. But for example, if they're not in my life anymore and I'm carrying what they've done, maybe I'm even carrying it forward into a new relationship and I'm comparing this person to the person that did a number on me, and and I'm thinking, oh, this person might be like that person. I would say that I've not, in that situation, I've not actually forgiven that person. And whether you take action on forgiving them or not, like go to them directly and say, I forgive you, it's about forgiving them in your heart. Because when you forgive them in your heart, or even situations, you may have been in a situation, you can't go back and change that, but you can change your perception of it now. And forgiveness is freedom. It's freedom, and it's the forgiveness that life happens as well. We all know the inevitable, what's going to happen in our lives. We are all going to pass at some point, and nobody knows when. Nobody knows when. And when it does happen, there can be so much emotion around it that you just can't forgive and move on. Even if you think you have, you might still be holding on to something and it just drags you down. But then when you can forgive life for being what it is, you personally will find freedom. And sometimes it's as simple as even just thinking, actually, I am going to forgive that situation, that person. I'm going to forgive because I want my freedom. I want my power back. You don't want to live in the guilt either. So sometimes just being aware of this, and you might have suddenly had a situation pop into your mind and you thought, oh, do you know what, that's just popped into my mind. Maybe I'm holding on to something there. And you can have a little deep dive in your own mind to see if you are, and there might be a reason why it's come forward. And there's many layers to this. And it's a bit of an art as well. It's a bit of a practice. You have to keep doing it. And sometimes you may even have to forgive that situation more than once. It may need to be a constant. You wake up in the morning and you say, yeah, I forgive. I forgive. And I'm moving forward. And I'm moving forward. Because you don't want to miss where you are in this moment, because you're holding on to what you can't change. And there's just so much freedom in that. And there's so much power in that, which is why I wanted to share that with you. I also find as well, another really good one to think about is be the energy you want to attract. This is a little bit like when you manifest, and like what I said earlier about really embodying who you are. Fully who you are, who you want to be, all of it. You are that person. You are that now. And for an example, if you want to write, if you want to be an author, if you want to have a book or books come out, you are a writer. Whether you've written one book, you write every day, or maybe you write once a year, you are that person. You are that writer. You are that author. Because you are. If you paint one picture and you're like, I absolutely love this, I love it, love it, love it, and then you don't paint again for another year, you're still a painter. Whether you do it every day or once in a blue moon, you still are that person, because you can feel a hint of your identity in what you got out of it, which means you are that person. So being the energy you want to attract. This comes back to like the negative Nellies. Oh, I'm always gloomy about everything. Oh, I'm always angry. Oh, I'm going to get on the wrong side of me. I'm always angry. I've always got something to shout about. If that is you, or something else, that is what you're going to attract in. And unfortunately, when that happens, it reaffirms your identity as being said angry person. If you're always having arguments with people, it stays with you because you're like, well, obviously that's who I am. No, it's not. I'm here to tell you now, no, it's not. You don't necessarily want to identify with all your emotions. So you don't want to be like, I'm always happy, I'm always positive. But on the flip side, do you really want to be, I'm always down and doom and gloom about everything? I mean, this podcast would not be where it is if I turned up every time to one of these podcasts and go, hi everyone, my name's Jolene. I'm just going to start off right off the bat now and say, do you know what? Today's been absolute shit. Oh yeah. Oh, it's just awful. Yeah, first of all, I woke up and then, and now I'm here and it's just awful. Would you tune into that? Oh my God. It's like, it's so heavy. It's hard work. To be honest, even faking it for you then was just hard work. And some people, this is their natural. And if it's you, it's okay. Because you have the power to be who you want to be. And do you want to be that heavy negative energy? Or do you want to be what you want to attract in? Do you want a good life? Do you want a happy life? Do you want others to feel happy around you? Do you want to feel happy around them? This is where the power is. Be the energy that you want to attract. And also remembering as well that where your focus goes, your energy flows. So if you're putting your focus in to, everything, look at the cloudies, look at this, that's where your energy will go. And that's why it's so heavy. It's heavy. But when you focus on the lightness, like right now, for example, yeah, there's a lot of cloud in the sky, but off into the distance, I can see where the sun is piercing through the clouds. You can see the light coming through. You can see the radiance of the sun shining through. And that's where my focus is. That's where I'm looking. And this is what we've got to be in life. And sometimes people are like, oh, you can't just be positive about everything. And you're quite right. But if I'm trying to be upbeat, look at the opportunity in everything, look at where the light is, finding where the joy is in life, then when times are bad, times won't be as bad. They won't be as heavy. Because we cannot, and I'm not beating around the bush with what I say on here, suicide rates are going up. I have lost people in my life, particularly over the last 4 years. Since 2020, the isolation that we all felt in our own homes is a real thing. And this has transpired into so many more suicides. I have had friends. I hate that I'm having to put an S on the end of that. I have friends who have lost their children because they have committed suicide. This is why things like this podcast is so important, because if I can help spread some joy or insight to you, you can hopefully help spread that joy and insight to somebody else, then they can do it to somebody else, and this is the ripple effect. This is where I know my work makes a difference. And when people ask me, how much money have you made from the podcast? I don't care. And it's not something I do for money. I like to think, God, how many people could I have helped? Oh my God, that's amazing. To think of how, when I see how many people have downloaded this, how many people have streamed it, people who come to me and say, oh, I really like that. I didn't think of this like this. Oh, have you thought about this like this? It opens dialogue. It opens conversation. It might open conversation between you and somebody else, and you might never speak to me about it. However, this ripple effect happens is so critical. And I want you to know that that's how I feel about my podcast, and that's how I want you to feel about you. You are also the ripple effect. You also have the power to make somebody else's day better, and then they have the power to make somebody else's day better in whatever way, shape or form. It doesn't have to cost money. It can just be a hug. It can just be a smile to a stranger on the street. This sort of thing is so important. And this is my message to you today, is that this is so important. But we can apply this all the time. We can be that energy we want to attract, because then that person will then take it on, and the next person will take it on. This is where we break out of the social conditioning that we've been brought up with, the distractions that we are bombarded with every day. Consumerism is huge. To buy more, buy more, buy more. What happened to being more? Yeah? What happened to, personal development and self-growth? Where's all that? Where's the billboards for all of that? There isn't. There's so many songs that are released that are like high up in the charts or whatever now. They're all so derogative and so negative. And I listen to beautiful songs by amazing artists. Those ones aren't the ones that are like the most popular ones. Society is designed to bring us down, to put us in a hole, to put us in a box, to separate us as well. To make us think that if someone's a different colour skin to us, that we should not help them. Oh no, we shouldn't do this, we shouldn't do that. We are also taught to demonise people for their sexuality. I don't give a toss what your sexuality is. I really don't. I care about, how are you today? Are you okay? I don't care about any of all this other stuff. But we are being taught to separate ourselves from other people. We are unique and magnificent as we are, but also we are also no different to another human in the sense of we are sharing this life together. And this is why it's so important what I'm putting out to you all the time. And then it's important what you put out into the world as well, because you are a magnet as well. You are amazing. If you're listening to this, just know that. And I don't even have to know who you are. And I know you are amazing. I know you have talent. I know you have brilliant qualities. Because you wouldn't have listened this far into this episode if you didn't, or if you didn't want to try and be better, or you want to try and help somebody. That's who you are. That's part of who you are. And a lot of this has come to me this week, like really intensely, about our perception, about forgiveness, about our focus, and about our drive in life. And I'm going to give you another one that's such a huge one to think about, that I feel that our age is an illusion. Our age is such an illusion and another distraction. And I know I do have my birthday coming up soon in November, and I'm quite excited about that because I just always am. But if there was no time, no clocks, and we just literally just went by the seasons, how would you feel about your age? And some countries don't really even have seasons as well, depending on where you are. So I'm in the UK and we have 4 seasons. Some countries only have 2 seasons. Where would you... And some don't really have any season at all. They just maintain a same all throughout the year. But where would we be in our mindset if we were not bothered about our age? I think life would be so different. I mean, life would be incredibly different if you go down the rabbit hole in your mind of thinking about if there was no time, like no calendar either. Well, everything gets blown out the water. But I'm literally just talking about it with age because it is quite a little. It's quite a little head fuck to think about. So with your age, I mean, I have met people in their late teens, early 20s, and they are old. They're really old. And I'm not talking about, oh, they're old and wise, maybe they've lived before. Yes, you get that too. But they're old. They're like, oh, yeah, just everything's hard work. Oh, just getting up's hard work. Oh, yeah. Oh, dear. And everything's so drab. Oh, my ankle just clicked then. That means I'm old. I'm sorry, I never really saw that an ankle clicking is old. But then you get other people who are into their 80s and they're fit as a fiddle, they're doing stuff, they're going on holidays, or they might be doing stuff by themselves, up and down ladders, they're going to fitness classes or whatever. And you're like, you are younger than some of the 20-year-olds I know. How's this happening? They're not walking around going, oh, look, my wrist just clicked, that means I'm old. It's mindset. Your age is mindset. It really is. And the interesting thing is over the last few years, I've been thinking a lot about retirement. When you get to retirement age and, they're possibly going to be changing in the UK, like the pension age again. And, you're going to have to work for longer before you get your pension and things like that. And I'm like, yeah, but this is where I have issues with a lot of this stuff, right? Because I kind of feel like, yeah, but if you're doing stuff that you enjoy, why would you retire? Because something occurred to me about 4 or 5 years ago. I thought, why should I retire? Why should I? Because I felt like it was a need that, one day at a certain age, I'm going to have to retire. Capital H, on have to retire. And I thought, well, actually, do I? Do I have to? I don't want to go through my whole life doing a job that I can't wait to retire from. I mean, yeah, things might change. I might think, oh yeah, well, I might do less of this. I might do a bit more of this. And I think, yeah, but why should I retire? And when I started thinking about that, it made me really think, God, it's another thing on our age. It's another thing in our mindset with our age. And age just isn't real. And someone asked me recently, and I know she listens to the podcast, so she'll probably smile when she hears this, but she said, oh, I'm dating someone, and he's like, I think she said 10 years younger than me. And I was like, yeah, but do you feel the age gap? Does it matter? And she was like, no. And I'm like, well, it doesn't matter then. whole thing about age is such an illusion. It's about how you feel, how other people make you feel, or how people get you to feel. And that's what it's important. That's where it's important, is how you feel. Age is just another thing written down on a piece of paper. It's like getting married, and don't get me started on that. I think, and I've been married, I think marriage is one of the biggest distractions of all. And I knew this at the time of when I did get married, because I remember me and my partner, we managed to get married. This is an ex. And if you're listening, by the way, hello. But we got married, and I was like, well, I don't want to spend like extortionate amounts on the wedding, because it just felt like a waste of money. I was like, no, the money's for a marriage, not for getting married. But we are conditioned in our lives to spend so much on a wedding, and it's over in a day. You spend so much time planning it, and then it's over in a day. And the wedding blues and the depression must be huge for some people. And then also, you kind of find sometimes people end up getting divorced before they paid off the wedding. And I'm like, God, there's nothing more depressing than that feeling. And this is common. It's not a one-off thing or one-off situation. This is a real thing. People spend so much on a wedding that they then have to spend their marriage paying it back. And maybe even they get divorced before they paid it back. And I'm like, no, thanks. So we got married really cheap. It was lovely, but it was really cheap. Because even then I thought, oh no, I don't want to spend a load. And again, just marriage is another distraction. And at the end of the day, I'm not saying don't get married. I'm just saying think about it. Think about your why and why you want to do certain things. Because a lot of the time with a wedding, it's quite ego driven. I got to have this, got to have this, got to have this. With a lot of stuff in our lives, it's ego driven. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with your ego. It's just, how is it showing up? Is it showing up from quite an egotistical way? Or is it showing up from a place of compassion or support? And the difference would be, for an example, ego drives me to do this podcast. Ego drives me to show up and to share this with you. Because if this can reach more people, then my ego is very happy, because my ego is being driven by love and compassion with this. I want this podcast to reach you, but if I didn't let my ego drive some of it, it would never be a thing. So what I'm saying is, ego is not a bad thing. Another way ego, particularly in this situation, could be more egotistical is, okay, I am just doing episodes that I think you want to hear, not what I feel is important as my message to get out to the world. So I could be driven by, well, what do you want? And I take suggestions, and if it's in my wheelhouse, I'll do it. It might be that I'm just going to chuck on loads of adverts. Now, a lot of you know how I feel about TV and things. So why would I want this podcast full of adverts that mean nothing to this podcast? So my ego could drive me in that way. And I could think, oh, I'll just get an advertising company to put a load of adverts on this. And, halfway through, keep stopping and doing 2 minutes of adverts. And yeah, I could get a bit more money for that. Get some money for that. That'd be good, wouldn't it? But that's not what's actually driving me. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, because these podcasts that you hear on all these platforms, some of them are being needed to support. So if that person is needing that money, if something happened with some of my other businesses, I might have to turn to that to be able to carry on doing that and to support myself. But in the way that mine is particularly set up, I don't need to do that. So why would I? The only reason why I would is for my ego. I want a bit more money. Oh, yeah. And that's where your ego can drive different situations for different reasons. So you always just want to know how it's driving you. And that's what's important with it. So you don't need to think. Some people say, leave your ego at the door and things like that. You don't want to leave it, because it will help you move forward. Like I said, this podcast would never have been a thing if I didn't let my ego drive some of it. And this is where it's finding that difference. So if you want to have a wedding, oh, it's got to be a big wedding, it's got to be this. What's driving it? Sometimes it can be other family members driving it as well. It might not even be your ego. You might think, oh, I don't want to do X, Y, and Z, but so-and-so in the family wants this. They want to be able to fly this person in and show them this. And it might be their ego driving it and they're putting it onto you. So yeah, it's such a big one with ego. So don't let it completely run the show. Ask it why it's showing up and why it's doing what it's doing, because we never want to get rid of it. But with this, there's so many takeaways in this, and there's so many different ways of applying. This is very spiritual, our perception of things, with our energy, it's very spiritual. But then the reality and our focus is much more of a logical mind, a lot more of a business mind. So if we can merge the two things together and make them work in harmony, then we can get so much more from what we're doing. And yeah, I just really hope that you've taken so much from it. Any insights that you get from this, please, by all means, do send me a message, do talk to me, because I'm always very interested to see how these episodes land for you and how they work their magic in your life or with your family or loved ones or your friends. So yeah, I hope you have an amazing day. And just as I'm finishing this episode, I said it was cloudy earlier. I have literally in the past minute, and it's getting stronger, a beam of sun coming right in to my face. It feels like just a very big connection to source right now. So yeah, I'm grateful for you being here. Remember, as always, to lead through your life with your heart and to live with intention. Thank you so much for tuning in today. If you enjoyed this episode, please do share it with your friends and on social media. If you have the time to rate or review this podcast, I'd be ever so grateful. If you'd like to follow me on Instagram, you can find me at Jolene Sensual Being. The links to my YouTube and to sign up to my mailing list will be in the show notes as well. I look forward to speaking with you again very soon.